Welcome to my story time. I'm Kathy Ramsperger. I'm a lifelong journalist, humanitarian, and I'm author of the award-winning The Shores of Our Souls and the upcoming 1,000 Flying Things. I'm also a coach who founded Ground One and Step Into Your Story. I'm here to connect people, both readers and writers like you who love books. And today we're talking to the award-winning and incredibly talented Sarahlyn Bruck, who is the author of 2 award-winning novels. Sarahlyn grew up in California, where she attended college before moving to West Hollywood. The years of living and working in and around LA gave Sarahlyn a taste for the fun, fast, ambitious, and creative people involved in the entertainment industry. When she and her family moved to Philly in the summer of 2007, she fell in love with the East Coast and its feeling of being close to the center of politics and culture. But she never lost her affection or forgot the buzz of the entertainment industry. And her latest novel, Daytime Drama, was born of that love. And she teaches writing and literature at college level in Philadelphia. And she was also my author accelerator book coach for a novel I was writing, a novel in progress. So we'll talk about both of those a little bit too. Welcome, Sarahlyn, and then I'll tell the audience a little bit about Daytime Drama.
Great. Thank you for having me, Kathy. I'm so glad to be here.
It's so much fun seeing you because we kept missing each other face to face, but we've had a lot of phone conversations.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely.
nice.
I do
Really
feel like I
nice
know
to
you.
spend time. Yeah, I do. So Kirkus Reviews calls Daytime Drama a fun, frothy tale that will leave readers excited for a sequel. And there's a Midwest book reviewer named Sue Ann Shafter who called it a perfect beach read. I totally agree. And a compelling women's fiction story with heartfelt moments between mother and son, child, and parent. So, Daytime Drama, if you might have guessed, is about a soap opera star, Calliope Hart, not Harp. And by night, though, she's a harried single mom. And life for any working mom is harried, and it gets even more so when you're a single working mom. And if the industry, if the biz is thrown in there, I'm sure it's even worse. So it's a delicate balancing act. So she's on the precipice of change, but then the network cancels her show, which is called Napa Valley. And her just holding the pieces together completely gets torn apart. And she has to decide whether it's more important to fight to save the show or take a risk and start over from scratch. In this mix is her mom and then her 12-year-old son. And her mom takes care of her son, Jonah, while Callie is working. And there's also an ex who's extorting money from her and hasn't yet met his son.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the cancellation happens, she realizes she really doesn't know who she is in the mix. And that makes for a deep, satisfying drama and plot.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. So thank you for this magnificent read. It's a year old this month. Happy book birthday.
Thanks.
And it's hard to believe that it's been a year since March 2021, but it has. And congrats on its success during the pandemic. That's really special too. So let's talk about your inspiration and your background a little bit in terms of the California life.
Mm-hmm.
You say the Hollywood area inspired this new novel, and I'm wondering what inspired the message in particular, because it's a different slant on the usual Hollywood book. And I'm just wondering if it was like that from the beginning in your mind or if it changed along the way.
Yeah, it's, honestly, when I started writing this book in winter of 2017, I was cold. I was freezing my buns off. I've never gotten used to the winters here. And I know that they're relatively mild when you compare it to upstate New York or something. But for me, I'm a California girl coming to any place that gets below 50 degrees. I'm freezing. And so I just, in February, Southern California can actually get quite warm. You can have a day where you can actually take a dip in the pool because it's 80 degrees outside. And I missed that. I missed that. I quite frankly, I was probably feeling a little bit sorry for myself.
All good books start that way.
So I just kind of I thought, well, if I can't, I have a day job, I teach, so I wasn't going to be able to go anywhere in February. I was stuck teaching classes, which is great. So I thought, well, if I can't go there to visit physically, I'm going to visit there in my brain and write a story about it, write a story that's set there. My husband, when we lived in Hollywood, he was an assistant editor and an editor for a while. And so a lot of the friends that we made were connected to the entertainment industry in some way. And they weren't all actors. In fact, most of them weren't. We knew directors, we knew people who work in commercials and movies. We knew people who worked on sets. They helped build sets, costume design, set design, just all of and they were these wonderful creative people that I just, as kind of an outsider, it was really fun to look in and see this creative energy. And I thought, oh, not only do I want to be in the California sunshine for a little bit, at least in my head, I also want to kind of capture that energy a little bit too, which is so different from the wonderful energy that I've discovered here on the East Coast. So that kind of combination was what I was looking for. And it really kind of propelled me through writing stories that I'm most interested in, which are about families and relationships and love and those kinds of connections. And also about families that don't necessarily look like everybody else's families.
Yeah, I love how you did that. I love the family dynamic. That's my favorite part of the whole book.
Oh.
And it's not necessarily what attracts me to most books, but you did it so well and so convincingly.
Oh.
Well, it's true. So do you think I know the East Coast is completely different from the West Coast, but would you say the family values is what you're talking about in terms of the East Coast, or is it just different? And it's okay just to say it's different.
No, I don't think that the family values are necessarily different. Because I think that they're different everywhere. I think every single family is unique in its own way. My husband and I talk about this all the time. We talk about how, some families are just, they work, but they have different set of rules and values than we do. And we just kind of marvel at that. I think it's I just think there's so many ways to get it right. I tell my students that there's so many different ways to get something right. And I think it applies to families too. And that is really interesting to me.
Well, and you've explored it here. So another thing your book reminded me of was all the masks we wear every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's been coming up a lot this month in interviews I've done and webinars that I've attended. It's amazing. So I really wanted to bring it out as a theme. And I mentioned when I sent you some preliminary material that we could riff off of, that my favorite Billy Joel song is "The Stranger," and it's all about putting on masks and taking them off. So I'm wondering how you feel about people in the public eye having more masks than, say, a cashier at a grocery store, and or are we all the same that way? And I know that I'm not saying that some rivers don't run deeper. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we all have problems. That's what my dad used to say, at least.
Yeah.
Do you think the problems are different in terms of that constant putting on a face for celebrities or influencers?
I love this question, because this does kind of directly talk about, as someone who is, their job is to put on a mask, a
You do
mask
that so effectively in that, I think it's the first chapter.
in the opening scene, and her taking off that, she really sees that as a mask, and she sees it in a very positive way. It's a positive for her. And I think a lot of actors feel that way, and for them it's very literal. But I think all of us, the cashier at the grocery store also wears masks. I think that there's a way that you behave at work. There's a way that you behave with your family. There's a way that you behave on a first date, or at a job interview. We all have our own masks that we wear every day, right? I'm not wearing my pajamas, for example, right now.
Yeah.
But, not that this is necessarily a mask, but you know what I mean? I think we all wear masks in our day-to-day lives.
Depending on where we are and who we're with, I believe. And even though there were lots of pajamas, I keep seeing them everywhere. Every time I go out, there are more and more. It's like they morphed and just breeded. But but I don't know. I wore pajama bottoms once during this pandemic. But do you think everybody's kind of individual in terms of what they mask or how much they change? You think it's just an individual thing?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that there are definitely certain groups of people who feel like they have to shield parts of their authentic selves to mainstream society, for sure. But I think that most of us put on these masks anyway. I think that we just do it. I think it's kind of an automatic thing. The way that we behave on a subway. Actually, you should see some of the ways that people behave on the subway. That is.
Oh, I have.
There, you want to talk about masks? That is a very interesting character study right there. It's just take a long ride on the subway.
That's great book material. And I still have one story about this guy who was standing by the pole. He wasn't in a seat. And he sneezed, and nobody said anything because do see Petro. And nobody even looked up. And he said very loudly, "God bless me, because nobody else will." So that'll be in one of my books someday.
That is fantastic. Yes.
He really wasn't wearing a mask at all.
Okay. Yeah.
I hope he's wearing a mask now. But it was really sad and funny.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to take care of yourself.
So your novel is as much about being a romantic partner and a mom family as it is about being an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if the dynamic that we just mentioned, the grandmother Karen,
Mm-hmm.
daughter and mom Callie, and the son Jonah, was your approach. Did you think this is going to be the family unit, or
Yeah, I love the idea of these multiple generations under one roof.
Mm-hmm.
I think, for one, it's a family dynamic that you do see often, but it's not necessarily acknowledged as the family. I love the fact that they all live in the same house together. That is definitely going to lead to some drama, for sure. And I think it's fun. We see the relationships between, children and their parents. But I also think that as you get older, as an adult, you're a bona fide adult, your relationship with your parents also shift and morph. And that's such an interesting, it's still an interesting dynamic. And that history is all still there. And that I really wanted to explore too. And plus just her relationship growing up with her mom was also so complicated. So I just kind of wanted to throw all of that in a big salad bowl and just toss it and see what happened.
And you did it so well. It could have gotten so complicated and you kept it so simple. So I want to say that's your superpower. Because it could be, it could be a family saga, and you've got multiple points of view and you handled it brilliantly. Okay. Did you know Callie's son was going to want to be in the business from the beginning?
So no, not necessarily. That kind of developed. And part of it was my daughter is now almost 18. She's a senior in high school, which is hard to believe, but she was in middle school. And I don't know about you, but middle school kids are hilarious, just across the board. I love them. They are just their own selves. They are awkward often, but they are so funny. They have some of the best just senses of humors. I loved her whole class. Like they were just hilarious. Anyway, and I had already written.
They're not adept enough to wear masks yet.
No, that's such a good point. Yeah, no, not yet. They don't know that yet. They're still figuring that out.
They're like, I don't know. I'm just so clumsy. I'm so boring. Whatever. Mine was boring. Not my kids, but me. I was like,
right.
Oh, I'm so boring.
But in my previous book, I had written that the child was a teenage girl, and I just wanted to see so I'd already kind of explored some of the mother-daughter dynamics, and I really wanted to explore the mother-son dynamics in this one, and not feel like my daughter was, that I was writing about her or something, which I wasn't at all. And I could just see him, as soon as I started painting his picture, I could just see him just this little, small for his age, glasses with some attitude. And he's got a whole lot of heart and a whole lot of, some self-confidence there. And I thought, oh, of course he's going to want to go. He wants to be a comedian. He thinks he's hilarious because he is hilarious, So, and he just wants to go for it. And he doesn't understand why he's at that age where he's starting to push against the rules that his mom has set up for him. So I thought that was kind of also kind of a ripe point for conflict and drama, because, she could also see him a little bit as competition too.
Yeah. And in true grandmotherly fashion, Karen steps in and kind of contradicts things from time to time. And so it sets up a wonderful conflict, not a horrible conflict, it's a wonderful conflict, it's so family. I wanted to say, I don't usually interview authors who've written this kind of book. I just knew what a great author you are because I'd read you first. And so I thought, okay, there's going to be a way. And then I started reading, and the more I read, the more I realized that you were dealing with one of the biggest social issues of our time, fame, because everybody either is famous, wants to be famous, or feels they have to be famous. That's me. Because in order to get anything done. It's like everything is built on platform, and how many eyes and how many clicks and how many laughs or whatever. And so I want to commend you on that. And I think it especially applies to the arts, because more businesses are using or abusing artists and creatives to sell now than they ever have before. And I'm wondering if you used some of your feelings as an author to understand Callie, Paul, and Jonah a little better. I'm sure you used some of the feelings that you felt when you were on the West Coast.
Right. Yeah. I've never wanted, I really understand the idea of cherishing privacy. I actually really cherish my family. I understand deeply the idea of wanting to protect my daughter from anything that I do. And also, it's my responsibility as parent that she's not here to be my fan, or you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
I
I'm
know
here for
about
her.
your child, but mine would remind me of that even in their 20s, that they are not my fans.
I'm glad that doesn't end. But they always just kind of bring us down to earth, right? Yes. And that's how it should be. And so
It should be like that.
and I understand, fame is such a weird concept to me, because I feel like I've always been an introvert. I don't particularly need tons of, attention other than from the people who I already know and love. However, I have this desire to tell stories that and I want people to read them, quite frankly. And so how do you reconcile that,
There's another book. We should write it together. Seriously, I don't know the answer to that question. And I'm beginning, the older I get, to not care what the answer is. I don't know whether you feel like that. I'll just write my stories, do my best to get them published, and people will either buy them or not buy them.
Right.
I have some writer friends who say, "Oh, I don't write for the money." Well, I certainly do. Who writes for the money?
Right.
But I feel like you do earn money if you get readers. So it's like a catch-22.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
think
it
it's like
is.
that with acting too? Are they similar that way, or?
Well, I think with acting, it is, especially now with social media, it is about how many likes do you have? How popular are you? How many eyeballs are on the latest photo you posted on Instagram? And I think it's really easy to fall into that, and trying to remember, which is what this book is partly about, is remembering what is truly important, what truly matters. Is it, as an actor, do you, in order to stay present in front of people's eyeballs, do you go and do a cheesy reality show? Do you go on every single interview possible, on morning television and zoo radio shows, and, do that tap dance over and over and over again for the chance to get to work on stuff that has meaning for you, or not? I mean, is the work meaningful? You end up making these trades all the time, but I've decided, because I'm not a spring chicken, I'm going to be doing work that's meaningful to me. And I also want to be doing things that, like talking to you, is meaningful to me. I want to be doing things that, serve the purpose, things that our publisher likes for us to do. But I also want to be doing things that are interesting and fun. And I love getting to know other people and having great conversations as well, but I don't think I really want to go on a housewives show.
I definitely don't. I feel like things might be turning a little bit right now. I don't know whether that's just wishful thinking or whether they really are.
Like
But
for live events?
for live events, and even for what people are clicking on. I've
Oh,
seen some really good things produced over the last 2 years that were thoughtful and not just. I love a funny meme. I'll give you. I love them, but if everything people post that get lots of clicks is a funny meme, who are these people, right?
right.
So I love finding out who the people are and the story behind their story.
Yes,
Um,
me too.
well, I want to read just a few examples of what resonated with me from daytime drama. And I'll have a question at the end, I promise. Um, I thought Karen's thinking about her grandson's potential audition is a perfect example of all the what ifs that play in our mind as we're about to take a leap forward, both the good and the bad. But I always thought she was like, go, because she was like a cheerleader to him, right?
Yeah.
So it was interesting what she really thought to me. I was so glad for that insider information into her brain. He probably wouldn't even get a call back. He might hate it like Callie's older brother Russell had hated it. He might see it as a soul sucking and exploitative exercise, though she doubted it. So I thought it was wonderful that she was seeing all sides of it. She was a mom, right?
Hmm.
And I also thought, wow, that's what goes in my head all the time on the treadmill. And I know that my own parents um, had me write out a list of pros and cons to any decision I ever made. It's been a wonderful life skill to have.
Yeah, what a great tool.
It was. And then they would say, now, what does your gut say after that? That's how I make every decision I have ever made. And um, I thought it, I thought it showed a lot about Karen.
Yeah.
In addition to being a very interesting uh, digging into the mind of a character. And I loved your job description for agents and publishers. I love the rhythm of it. And this is what she loved about Jamie, her agent, from the start. Just the right amount of smoke, just the right amount of hustle, just the right amount of out of box thinking. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's what I want. Um, so um, here's another one. When right before Callie takes a big leap, she's balancing on the edge of change, not to give anything away. No spoilers here. I can't wait around to be picked anymore. And I certainly can't just wait around until something good falls in my lap. She's telling that, I think, to herself, but it might be okay. And I think that's really when change occurs, when we finally say, I don't care, I'm not waiting anymore, I'm just going to jump.
Yeah.
And one last one about how our kids are our biggest teachers. Callie watched as her proud mother took the opportunity to stand up from the front row, turn around to wave to the crowd, then back to blow a kiss. Always the stage mom, she thought with affection, tinged with a tiny bit of resentment. Oh boy, I felt like that about my mom. She should have been sitting in the front row herself. She should be his biggest cheerleader. But instead, she tried to stop him from even trying, just like she was doing to herself. That gave me chills and tears, good tears, right? I remember once I was trying to decide whether to take a job, and I was taking a walk with my son. He was about 13. And he said, what is it? And I described the job. And then he said, well, why aren't you going for it? And I told him, not in any great detail. And then he said, how's that working for you, Mom?
Wow. Wow.
They're our biggest teachers, and that is absolutely
Yeah.
what that is. She
Yeah.
is changing through watching her son there and
Yeah.
knowing what she wants. Just brilliant writing.
Oh.
So, you want to say anything about how families are our teachers, how kids are our teachers, how generations are our teachers?
Yeah. I mean, we can always, I mean, I don't know about you, but there's a whole lot. The older I get, the less I know.
Yeah.
And I think that Callie has thought she has figured a lot out, and she's learning that there's a whole lot she still doesn't know. And I think that's, part of it is, kind of a control issue, wanting to have control over our lives, have agency, which I believe in. However, you can't have control over everything, and everyone in your family, especially as your kids get older, as your parents get older. We're all growing, and we're all evolving. But I think for Callie, she's really realizing that she doesn't know everything. And even Karen, her mom, is also realizing she doesn't know everything too. That there are things out of life that she wants now that she's older, and that Jonah's getting older too. I mean, just because we've been making so many connections between, being an author and being an actor. And I think this goes for anything in the arts, is just how powerless you can feel sometimes. And I don't know about you, but, I kind of grab hold of the things that I have control over, which is the manuscript I'm working on, or my edits, or the amount of work or effort I can put into something and see and realize a goal that I have for myself. Whereas so much of it is about being picked. If you are an author who wants to be traditionally published and get an agent, often we don't have control over that, or we don't have control over the timing of it. And so much of this business, and it goes for acting too, just can feel so soul crushing, and out of our control. And I feel like Callie was sort of my avatar there for a little bit. She was like, oh, God, I need to do something for myself. If I'm not going to get picked, then I'm going to do something, on my own. I'm going to veer right. They're telling me to go left. I'm going to veer right instead. Because I often feel that way as a writer.
Controlled from every angle.
Yeah.
Because there's her ex who's doing all those things that I won't go into because I want people to find out for themselves. And there's her mom who's sort of taken over the house. And there's a boyfriend that he's not controlling, but she was worried that he's controlling.
Yeah.
And then she's in the show. How many years? I can't remember how many years it was.
She's been on that show since she was a teenager. And so that show has had this grip on her. And also the entertainment industry is often not kind to women. And so they can say, you have to be a certain size, you have to look a certain way, you have to cut your hair a certain way. This is the makeup that we want you to wear, and because she was kind of this ingenue figure for a while. And now that she's in her 40s, I think and that was one thing when I turned 40, that I sort of started to evolve in a way that made me care less about what other people thought, at least certainly on the outside, which I found really freeing. And I think she's starting to kind of feel her own self here. She's starting to figure out who she is, that's separate from what others are telling her who she is.
So I loved your ending. I'm not going to tell you what it is, everybody, but I loved it. It's one of the best endings I've read in ages.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
It really is. Well, it's my subjective opinion, of course, but it's how I want a book to end. Because the message was there, the hope was there, and the outcome was maybe there. And I'm wondering if there's a sequel, so that's one question. But can you talk a little bit about how that ending is about Callie figuring out what's important in life? I don't think that's going to give any.
It all kind of comes to a head at one point, and a lot of the different threads in her life all kind of culminate at the same time. They all come together. And I think she starts to realize not only what's important, what she needs to hang on to, but what she can let go of. and that becomes as important. Finding out what to hang on to becomes, what to let go of becomes just as important as what to hang on to for her. So I think that that was sort of her journey the whole time.
Thank you. So would you say that's the basic message of the whole book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely what I got from it. I would have put it a little differently.
How would you have put it?
Well, I liked yours better. I mean, I'll tell you, but it shows where I am in my life. I would have said that priorities change as we grow, as we age, we grow, and priorities change along with that.
Yeah.
And it's an evolution about what's important at
Yeah.
any one time. I love the push and pull of the way you put it, though, because it's not, life isn't static. It's not a straight line. It's like this.
No.
So I love the way you put it. Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
That's something, a lesson for a lot of people. If we knew that when we were 14, not that we would listen.
Not that we
That'd
would
be
listen.
great.
I wasn't listening when I was 14.
No. So a little bit about you as a writer and the writing process. And to do that, I'm borrowing one of your great questions for your interviews. What do you love about being an author and the writing process, the doingness of the writing process?
Yeah.
Find challenging.
I love the work. I like sitting down every day and doing the work. I really, it can be really hard. And sometimes it's not, necessarily enjoyable, but I love it. I love the work. And it's one of those, I discovered how much I loved the process of sitting down by myself in a quiet room when I was writing my master's thesis, when I was pregnant with Virginia. And I just loved that whole process. And, what I was working on was fine, and it wasn't even fiction, but I just loved the process of sitting down every day. I was living in West Hollywood, sitting down in our dining room at the dining room table. My husband was working, so I had the house to myself, and I could just write and get this work done. And by the end of the day, it was very satisfying, even if what I was doing was outlining. I could see progress every day, and I just found that so satisfying. And I think that's my favorite part. Right now I'm actually drafting. I'm in the middle of drafting my next book. And I've prioritized my time. So the first hours of the day are spent getting my words in. And it's been very, very satisfying. I'm always sort of surprised every time I write a rough draft at how, because sometimes I dread it. I think, oh my God, I now have to write this thing. It's going to be 80,000 words. How am I going to write 80,000 words? It's like,
every time it's a new story, a new everything.
Everything. Yes.
You don't, I'm sure you do improve, but because of the differences in the story,
yeah,
you're not sure you can do it again.
Yes.
Like entering a whole new world.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's the work. I love it. And I'm already kind of scared of the editing process, but I love that too. I really just love the work. Yeah, that's what I love the most about being a writer.
I agree. I totally agree. But I would say revision would be my biggest challenge. So what's yours? What do you find challenging, if anything? Maybe you don't, because you get that much out in the first draft.
Well, honestly, it can be, there are plenty of challenges. There are challenges of getting stuck, which I do get stuck. But it's also so satisfying untying those knots. Like, I love that too. I love that feeling of finally figuring something out. So, my challenges are often kind of built into the work itself, and being able to overcome those challenges. But I think on a more practical level, often it's been just about finding time, and being really disciplined about managing the time to write, because I also have a full-time day job, and I'm a mom and a wife and a dog owner, and and I want to keep my friends, and go out and enjoy the sunshine every now and then. So I want to have a balanced life, and so finding the time has sometimes been a challenge, especially at busy times during my semester.
And I'll ask this just simply because it's my biggest challenge. Do you find yourself, when you have a lot of different things to write, a blog and an essay or papers to grade, because that's a different form of writing and because you have to think about it.
Right.
And I've done a lot of editing and ghostwriting, and so that's a different form of writing. And I've done promotional writing, and I worked for a nonprofit for 20 years and did writing for them. So it's cause-related marketing. Does the writing ever get in the way of the writing? It did for me, and it still does, but less so because I'm not doing the nonprofit work anymore.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I've had to learn, and I'm still learning, to compartmentalize. So when I go into my words for the day, I write the words and then I put it away. And then I move on to maybe grading a stack of papers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd be focused on that. And then maybe I have a book review that's due. So then I'll do my notes for the book review, but I try and keep everything very, very separate.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing we were talking about before was about coaching, and coaching was what messed up my writing. To be honest.
I almost brought that in early because we were right on the tip of it.
And I love coaching. That kills me. But it actually, I was starting to obsess over my clients' writing more than I was obsessing over my own. So anytime if I'm just walking to the grocery store, I want my mind to wander back to my own manuscript. And too often it was wandering over to my friends' manuscripts, which is great if that's all I wanted to do. But I was like, oh my God, something's got to give here. And unfortunately, it was coaching. I may come back if I can figure that out. I would love to come back to coaching, but it was actually messing up my own writing. That was the one thing.
But I think it's so important for a writer to write their work, and it's almost like putting on the oxygen mask first. Once we get our work out there, and that doesn't mean we can't be great literary citizens either. We can. You're writing reviews, you're teaching writing. But I think we have to choose. It can't be everything.
I think you're right. And that is, that comes back to learning what to keep, what to let go. And it's not that, and it's not necessarily forever,
No, like as you age, you grow, and as you grow, your priorities change.
Yeah.
You might find yourself in a completely different place once your daughter goes on to college.
Next year.
She's East or West Coast. I want to talk just a second, because in a way we talked about coaching. Before I have one final question about coaching, but before we get to that, have you always outlined? It sounds like you always have. Just a natural thing for you.
No, again, this is I do like an outline. I'm a big outliner now. The first novel I ever attempted to write, I just pantsed. This is back when Virginia was just a baby. So it was like 2006 or something. And I wrote my way into a hole. And, I was like right around the 50,000 word mark. I just had nowhere to go. And I put it in a drawer, and thought about, that's when I started taking classes through UCLA Extension. That's actually where I met Jenny Nash. And I really started learning about how to structure a story, and outlining became something very useful for me. I just learned that that's not the way I write. The reason why I wrote in my way into a hole is because I need an outline. Not everybody does, but I do.
Yeah, I don't think I absolutely need one, but having one, because I change it all the time anyway,
Me
because that's
too.
just the way I am.
Yeah.
And but having one means that I'm not going to have to do much revision, and I've told you how much I love revision. So I talk myself into the outline, even though I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. It's actually not even me. It's the characters saying, no, don't do that. Oh, I love it. Okay. So the question about coaching I want to ask, because it's always fascinated me. There are three words that I've done in my life, and that's training, teaching, and coaching. And I wonder if you see any difference between the three. There is some difference, but the more I thought about it, because I had asked you the question, because I've been thinking about it over the last couple days, I thought, I think we bring the same set of skills. So I wonder what you think the difference, especially between teaching and coaching, is. Is there a difference?
One difference that I can think of off the top of my head is who you're working with.
Okay.
So my writing students are, I teach for a community college. I teach writing students with a variety of different levels, often part of the same class, just a composition class, for example.
Right.
You'll have a big variety in interest levels.
In composition, you definitely will.
Yes. Excuse me. And I also teach creative writing too. But when you're working one-on-one with with a client as a coach, you're really working together for the same goal. Like ideally,
really want it.
Yes.
Use it as a prerequisite for a diploma.
Yes, you are truly partners, as you go through this process together. And I love that, which is why I think I end up thinking about their books so much on my off time. With my students, I often think about what I'm thinking about with them in my off time is how to engage them more, how to make them more successful, how to make them be more confident at the next level, which is different. That's just different. And I do get to know my students often very well with one-on-one conferencing, but it's very different. You're definitely coming in as, as the professor, you're the expert, and the student is there to learn. Whereas I think of with a coach and a client, you're together, you're working toward what the goal of the client, what they want.
Thank
if
you
that makes
so
sense.
much for that explanation, because I think, I don't know whether when you were doing it, you got asked this question a lot, but I know I do now.
Yeah.
What do you do when you coach? And that was a perfect explanation. That was a perfect explanation. I've got the long one, right? But I don't have the short one, and that it's a partnership. It's just more, there's more reciprocity. It's definitely a partnership, and
helping them realize their vision.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's so fun. It's so exciting. I love coaching so much. I miss
I
it.
do too. I do too. So what do your students think of your books? And what does your daughter think of your books?
Well,
if you don't mind telling me.
My daughter has not read my books. She is not particularly interested just yet. I mean, she's a teenager. and she's not particularly interested in reading those books, and that may change.
My
We'll see. It may not.
my son's girlfriend read my book.
Oh,
What about your students? Do they think it's really cool that you published, or
I
do they
don't.
care?
I tend to keep that very separate.
Oh,
So
it's
if
another
they
compartment.
ask, sometimes they'll ask, or sometimes they'll say, "Oh, I read your book," or "I read the first book," or whatever, and but I do try and keep it very, very separate, because
You do, because when you first started coaching me, I had no idea you taught. I
no,
think
oh,
I learned that only of late. So it's really cool that you can do that. And I think it's a wonderful way of dealing with the compartmentalization that we all need in life. And it's also a wonderful way to not worry too much about what this segment thinks. So I
and
think
the
that,
student thing, and it's also with students, it's like with my daughter, I'm here for my daughter. It's about her. And
yeah,
with
it is.
teaching a class, it's about my students. I'm not when I'm in class, I'm not thinking about anything else other than teaching them what it is we're learning for the day. So
Absolutely.
I'm not there to hawk my books at
Absolutely.
all. Most of them
Absolutely.
don't know I write novels, so which is fine
I
fine
think
with me.
that's beautiful and such a testimony to back the message of your book.
Hmm.
Um, it's not always that this is the case, so I'm just very impressed.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering, do you always use a coach? I know I would not do without one now.
I have worked with a coach, multiple coaches before. I love working with a coach. This book I'm writing now, I am writing for the first time without the aid of a coach, step by step. Um, that may change, but so far it's going okay. I thought I would, during the editing process, bring in either an editor, a developmental editor for some help, or work one-on-one, depending on how much work this draft is going to need,
Yeah.
just to kind of, and honestly, I found that it's the editing process. It is very challenging for me too, but it's knowing, okay, I started thinking um, of writing a novel as like painting, where you're working in layers,
It
and
is.
so I'm starting to think of editing as putting in those layers of the book. And I want to be really methodical. I want to learn how to be more methodical about that. And that is probably going to need the help of a coach or a developmental editor.
Cool. Okay. Just a couple final things to close.
Yeah.
How, how your book is excellent and it could sell itself. But do you have any tips for writers out there about how you launched it during a pandemic? Because you were right in the smack dab in the middle of it when it
Smack dab in
launched.
the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's done really, really well.
Oh, thank you. It's I in a way I was lucky. I think books that came out spring of 2020, I think authors had a really tough job because they didn't have all of the tools that I had a year
When I
later.
started this show, it was
Yeah,
for that reason.
right.
Mhm.
Right. And so I think so many authors and so many, I think there's so many of us started figuring out how to do it. And so there are already so many tools available to me a year ago that weren't available March of 2020.
Mhm.
So I'm grateful in a way for that. But most of the stuff that I was doing in person just went online. Um, in fact, all of it did, not just most of it,
Well, and that's
all of
probably
it.
good. That's probably good. And I think he's done an incredible amount for authors that couldn't get into bookstores.
Yeah,
That was me. I was all over the place online, but
yeah,
I was only in 3 bookstores because my book wasn't in a catalog.
right.
And so I think it's done a great deal. And I love this show, so I'm really happy that happened. And it says a lot for you and your book that it sold incredibly well no matter what. So congratulations on that. And
Thank you.
is this your fourth book you're writing right now? Your third?
The one that I'm writing right now is my fourth. So my
I thought so.
third book is with my agent,
Yeah.
and she is currently querying that or shopping it around to publishers. So
That's fantastic.
we'll see what happens.
So I think by the time you get to your fourth book, I haven't finished. I've finished 3 books. But I think by the time you get to your fourth, you probably have your mojo, and you probably you just can do it. It's like on automatic.
I hope so.
You know, it's every time, right?
It's different every time.
So where can people find you and your books other than your website, sarahlynbruck.com?
SARAHLYNBRUCK.com.
So where can people find them other than through your website? And what's up next for you?
So I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all under the same handle, which is just my first and last name. So at Sarahlyn Bruck.
Simple.
I try and make it as easy as possible if you're interested in seeing what I post. I post a lot of pictures of my dog and
What kind of dog? I wanted to ask that and thought I want to save some time, but what kind of dog? I have to ask.
he's a cockapoo.
Love them.
He's so adorable. I just I love him so much, and he only has one eye. So he's our one-eyed wonder dog. Yeah, so I post a lot of pictures of Jazzy and art around the city. I love mural art, and Philadelphia happens to have a lot of really good mural art, like a lot of big cities do actually. But yeah, and then I also have my author spotlight interviews, which you were kind enough to participate in. Thank you.
I was honored. Thank you so much.
But yeah, and so I post reminders about that. I do those about once a week.
So I'll put all of this under the video in the comments for people who are watching it later. And I always have a tea bag wisdom, and I'm kind of sad because they're becoming redundant. I'm pulling some I've pulled before, but it doesn't matter. I think this is perfect for your book. In the beginning is you, in the middle is you, and in the end is you. That's Callie.
I love it.
That's Callie.
Yeah.
I love it too. So thank you for spending the hour with us. Thank you for your wisdom and talking about the depth and the breadth of your book. I've loved getting to know you better, Sarahlyn.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, listeners, you can join me live every third Thursday at my Facebook page, interviewing authors like Sarahlyn. You can find all my interviews archived on my Facebook page. I also have them all on my YouTube channel. And you can find out more about me at shoresofourSouls.com and ground1coaching.com. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again soon. And until we meet once more, this is Kathy Ramsperger, bidding you hopefully nice weather and a really nice walk this weekend with a great book to read. Thank you. Bye-bye.